Welcome back to Blacksheep Barbell Podcast. Today we have Marissa Moroz on the show. She's a bodywork specialist, which we haven't really had someone like that on.
No, yeah, she's also a licensed physical therapist assistant. Obviously, bodywork is something that goes hand in hand a little bit with fitness, right, and training. She does a lot of work for bodybuilders who have struggled with some imbalances through posing. She helps get them right, get them stage ready. So I'm excited to learn a little bit about this.
Yeah, well, welcome to the show, Marissa.
So Ethan and I, obviously, with you being a bodywork specialist and PTA, this is something that we don't have a whole lot of knowledge on. It's something that I've kind of neglected, haven't got much bodywork done. I probably should, as much as I work out and, being prior military and stuff. I mean, I haven't had it done enough, but I'm curious to hear what it entails and just some of the benefits of it.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely excited to share. But I got I'm ready.
Awesome.
How long have you been doing it?
So I have the business for only a little over a year. So I just celebrated a year in April, but I'm actually a licensed physical therapist assistant. So I've been a licensed PTA for 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Okay. So you starting as a physical therapist, did that kind of lead the way into that? Is that like what sparked your interest initially?
Yeah, so my PT background has pretty much nothing to do with like bodybuilding. I actually worked and specialized in patients with like brain injuries, spinal cord injuries, MS, stroke, like all neuro stuff. So I've been doing that for the last 8 years. I've always had an interest in bodybuilding, but I just kind of got into the bodybuilding scene probably about like 3 years ago. I went to my first bodybuilding competition just as a spectator and fell in love with it. And I was like, I have to do this. I have to be involved in this. And then from there, I wanted to just make some extra money on the side. So I was like, maybe I'll do some like cupping stuff for people at the gym. And then I don't even know how, but the two just kind of came together and fell in line. And it just kind of grew from there.
So we've had like a lot of bodybuilders on, and they've honestly never brought up like body work.
Yeah.
So how important is that for going to shows and everything?
Yeah, it's really, really imperative for anyone, but especially bodybuilders and athletes to get this type of work done. The intensity of the training that bodybuilders put their bodies through, it requires the muscles to be targeted in this way. Not only just because it feels good and, things like that, but really for the muscles to be in the most advantageous state to train on, to recover, to grow even. Body work really is the answer for all of that.
What was the transition like? I mean, I'm sure there's a big difference when you are doing body work for, somebody that's competing, kind of an advanced bodybuilder compared to just somebody that's more average, trains.
Right.
I'm sure there's a big difference there with the type of work that they require.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most people, like, general population, anyone can benefit from body work. Of course, the amount of muscle density is gonna, be different in that. But aside from muscle density and things, everyone has kind of the same aches and pains. Everyone pretty much has some type of neck issue, some type of back issue. Their mobility isn't great. So you don't have to be a bodybuilder or even an athlete to benefit from body work and cupping and scraping and things like that. Where the differences mostly between bodybuilders and like general population would be more of like, okay, we're targeting specific areas for specific movements, posing, things like that. Obviously the muscle density is more in bodybuilders, but, everyone has the same muscles. It's, it's not any different from general population to like bodybuilders. So.
Gotcha. I think, that's kind of getting body work and just kind of loosening up your body is overlooked a lot, even just by average people. Like, I mean, you look at a lot of people's 9-to-5s now. I mean, whether you're working construction, you're constantly moving your body under a lot of stress, or, your 9-to-5 desk job where you're hunched over and you're on the computer. Right. It's like, I feel like a lot of people don't realize how important it is. Like, you might not consider yourself an athlete, but still being in those positions for so many hours a day, how this type of work can benefit you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing that I try to convey, is that anyone really can benefit from it because, like you said, we all have jobs, we're all on our phones, everyone is hunched forward. It's not just specific to a certain demographic or age or activity level, but where I really found my niche is in the bodybuilding community, and of course I'm so eternally grateful for that. But yeah, absolutely, everyone can benefit from it because, like I said, everyone has the same aches and pains, and whatever your activity level is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did some of your interest with working with bodybuilders, did that come from some of your own, like, you're a big trainer yourself, right? You lift a lot, and
Yeah.
are you into bodybuilding yourself?
Yeah, so I've always loved bodybuilding. Even when I was in high school and things like that, I was a huge fan of, like, that was like the Kai Green and Phil Heath
Yeah.
era. So I was a huge fan of Kai Green. I actually just met him for the first time at the Arnold, and I
awesome.
about
that's
died. It was like my life has come full circle. But I had an interest in them, and then I also followed at the time, like, YouTube was really big, and Instagram wasn't even a thing, but there were a lot of like bikini girls that I would follow on YouTube, and I just always thought it was cool. And then as I started training and stuff, got into it, followed it more. And then, like I said, a few years ago, I went to my first bodybuilding competition, and I was like, oh my God, I could do this. Like, I want to get on stage. That was my goal. It's still a goal of mine. I haven't had the opportunity to get on stage yet, but since that point, I've been training for it. And I've become more like intertwined into the world itself.
Have you seen some benefits, obviously, with you being into bodybuilding and training and being physical yourself? Have you seen firsthand some of the differences that, getting body work has made in your own training?
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I personally need to get better at, because I need to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
And because I don't get body work. And, so it's kind of like, who does the bodywork specialist get their bodywork done?
Right.
So I'm still trying to figure that out. But, even just as far as like mobility drills and things like that, that is really where I try to do it personally, because so many of my clients will come to me and they'll be like, I'm not stretching. I know it's so bad. I don't have the time for stretching. Honestly, my response is always, don't even worry about stretching. It's actually not that beneficial for you. Where the bread and butter is in between the sessions is going to be more like dynamic mobility drills, dynamic stretching, things that are going to keep you moving, but more or less warming up or cooling down. So that's where I try to at least practice what I preach, but I need like the cupping and the scraping. And
yeah. Getting into that with the cupping and stuff, like somebody that sees that, I've had so many people before in the past, like they'll come across the videos of the cupping or like the scraping.
Yeah.
And they're like, what is that doing? Like, what is like kind of some of the science behind that as to what it does, the cupping and then some of the scraping?
Yeah. So with the cupping specifically, what it does is it separates the tissues. So as you kind of pump up, the skin into the cup, it's separating all of those tissues. So it's separating the skin from the fascia, all of that. That is where all of those like muscle adhesions, that tightness, those sticky points, that's where all of those kind of lie. It's right in that connective tissue. So, as we're able to mobilize that, that's what's getting mobilized under the cup. Now, I personally have found the people get the most benefit when the cup or the body part that we're cupping is moving. So oftentimes you'll see a lot of athletes, like even people at the Olympics and things like that, you always see those like big circles on their arms or wherever.
Yeah.
That is from cupping. But oftentimes what happens is if you leave that cup on just on one spot, it gets really red, it gets bruised. That's where you find those big like octopus looking marks. So I try to mitigate that, especially as I'm working with athletes getting closer to stage. You have to be mindful of bruising. So where that minimizes is by moving the cup, by moving the body part, mobilizing that tissue so it's not as, drastic of a mark.
Say an athlete needs to get cupping.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a certain time period to do that before they step on stage because of the bruising and everything?
Yeah, so I'm actually trying to make a post about this right now because that's
Oh, okay.
that's a really common question that I get.
Mm-hmm.
I have worked on athletes like the soonest I've done is 1 day out from a show. Now, if I'm
Mm.
working on someone, peak week or a couple days out from a show, I typically don't use the cupping. Or if I do, I'm very, very mindful of, the pressure and how long I leave it on and things like that. But typically I don't, just to be safe. But that's definitely something that,
Yeah.
is beneficial, but you have to be mindful of.
Is it always like an issue they show up with, or is it just recommended to get body work done regardless?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. If someone is coming to me for, if they're prepping for a show, that specifically, um, if it's like a week out from a show, our main focus is getting out water retention, trying to really pull forward more of that detail, maybe tweaking any last minute muscle imbalances with posing. So the cupping's not super imperative because we're not trying to like fix something. We're just trying to get all the water out, maintenance, that type of thing. Now, if someone is in their off season and we're honing in on like muscle recovery, hitting it hard, they're training hard, all the things, then that's when, we'll hit it hard with the cupping, with the scraping, really trying to target the muscles, making sure that we're actually trying to address specific issues.
Is there, with cupping and the blading, and when
Mhm.
somebody gets some body work done, is there like a recommended recovery period? Like, could somebody get this type of work done and then go train the next day, or do you typically recommend, hey, kind of, take it easy for the next day or two, just because of that work that's getting done to their body?
Yeah, I typically recommend not training the day of. The
Okay.
day after is okay, and most people get the most benefit the day after training or after their training after their session.
Yeah.
So, most athletes will take their rest day and come see me. That's the perfect setup. I have had people who train in the morning and then come see me in the afternoon. That's also okay. But taking a day or two to recover after and then jumping right back into training is the best bang for your buck.
When should somebody get body work done? Say they're having an issue. How do they differentiate it between like a massage, body work, or like normal physical therapy?
Yeah, so I think that when somebody is getting or when somebody is training and they're noticing something repeatedly over and over, if it's a certain issue that they're noticing, if it's a muscle that they're not really connecting to on one side versus the other, those are all going to be key indicators of like, okay, maybe I need something more. It's not to say that you can't get massage therapy done, you can't get chiropractic care done. Any of those things are great. They all just kind of fall in their own wheelhouse. So for me specifically, I usually recommend body work for someone who can't connect to certain muscle groups. Maybe their left side doesn't connect as well as their right side when they're doing specific movements. Or if they are posing and they're noticing, okay, I feel like I'm kind of stuck on this side, things just kind of feel off. Anything that's repeatedly coming up, that is when I would recommend for them to come see me.
Is it like a symmetrical thing, like when they're posing, if they see one side like too high or something?
Absolutely. Yep. So typically for competitors, if they are X amount of weeks out, we typically will look at posing. And that's something that I really pride myself on too from my physical therapy background is the whole basis of physical therapy is assessment. So you're constantly assessing things when people are moving, when people are standing, how they're walking, all of those things. That's just physical therapy in a nutshell. So I'm not a posing coach, but I'm confident in my assessment skills to have someone pose in front of me, run through the routine, and then I can look at the muscles and see, okay, this is not moving as it should be. This side looks fuller than that one. Your rotation looks like this, whatever the case is. And then that gives me a better roadmap on where to address their issues in the session.
It's crazy how much detail goes into that. And I've noticed with myself personally, there's been many times, and just being able to, self-analyze what's going on with your own body. Like I've been in the gym before and I'll be doing a set of lat pull downs. I'm like, man, I'm really feeling this right side, but I'm not really feeling this left side that much. And I've taken videos of me squatting before, and Ethan has seen it as well, and many other people. I'll be squatting and like one side's leaning.
Yep.
And I'm like, what? I'm like, what is going on here? And then I make like an adjustment, and it's like, it feels off. My feet placement is kind of crooked. I'm like, this isn't right.
Absolutely. Yeah, there really is so much detail that goes into it. And I think it's helpful to have like an objective pair of eyes to look at things, because we're always constantly looking at ourselves, whether it's through the mirror or through videos or whatever, and we only see it through our lens. And that's why people hire a bodybuilding coach too, because you need that objective pair of eyes to look at things and see things that you maybe won't see. And that's what I try to just provide for my clients is, let me look at this through a physical therapy lens and address it from there, because you have yourself looking at it, you have a bodybuilding coach looking at it, maybe you have a posing coach looking at it. So it just adds another set of eyes to kind of look and see things that maybe somebody else doesn't.
Have you ever had somebody come in for like one issue, say that this shoulder is not feeling as red as the other one, and then you notice something else just visually, just like, oh, this needs work too?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny is that typically if we are addressing, let's say a shoulder issue or something like that, if we start to recover that, then something else usually pops up. Then it's like, oh, now my left low back is hurting. Because everything's connected. But that's just what happens. But it's, to me, that's fun, because it's kind of like it's like a puzzle. Typically if someone comes in and says, my shoulder is killing me or my elbow's killing me, whatever the case is, it's usually not from the shoulder. It's usually not from the elbow. So it's kind of like peeling back those layers of like, okay, is this coming from your neck? Is this maybe coming from your hips or something like that? But it really is kind of multifaceted when you start to peel back the layers.
I've kind of heard before, like if you have some joint pain, that it can actually be like an injury of like your spine. Yeah,
to an extent. Oftentimes anything like distally, like, whether it's your wrist or your ankle or your knee or whatever, it usually stems from either the low back, the spine, the neck, because that's where all of the nerves come out, and all those nerves integrate those muscles. So, it's kind of like working itself up the chain. But typically that's where it's stemming from.
We had went to an event in South Carolina last month, and there was a guy that was up demonstrating basically just some movements with bands and foam rollers and medicine balls. And he would be like, does anybody have any lower back pain or elbow pain or something like that? And he'd bring them up, and he would have them do these movements like, hold this medicine ball in between your legs, and then kind of like arch your back, just so many different movements. And he'd take some bands and just kind of move them around a little bit. He'd be like, all right, how do you feel? I'm like, I don't feel that pain. And, it's just that little bit of movement is crazy to see.
The other thing that is so, detail oriented too, is that especially with like low back pain, so many people come to me with low back pain or hip pain, glute pain, whatever. We all got back pain. and which is, it's great because it's common, but also it's hard because there are so many little intricacies of your pelvis and your back and your spine. And, it could be a number of things. It could be something stemming from your upper back, or your hips, or the little itty bitty muscles that are within your pelvis that you can't even really palpate, things like that. But I think people wait too long, and I'm guilty of this myself, but over time your body just compensates on its own. So you may not even notice that there's anything wrong, and then over time your body has learned to compensate for that. And then say 5 years down the line, then you're like, oh my God, why is my back killing me? When really it's the little itty bitty muscle in your hip that was weak. So then the right side had to take over, and, it just kind of snowballs from there. But it can get very complex, but majority of the time it's a lot of the same common issues with a lot of people.
Yeah, I've heard, well, with me, is that like the doctor, the physical therapist, they say it's like a disc issue. But honestly, I don't know if it is. I don't have a lot of like the other symptoms other than some pain like going back. So I wonder
Okay.
if it is some kind of like scar tissue or something.
Was that it?
Because I really heard it on a deadlift one time, but
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So.
it very well could be. And disc stuff is kind of hard because typically you get like shooting pains down your leg
Mm,
or, things like that. But if you're not getting that, then
yeah.
it's like, okay, is this a disc issue or did I pull something within the spine? Because there's
Mm,
muscles that run very close to your spine. Did you pull something in there? And then so
yeah.
that's kind of where it could be like, okay, is this truly a spine issue or is it just like a muscular issue?
Yeah, that's how I feel because I thought it was a muscular issue because I don't really have that shooting pain
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of just feels like sometimes it's like my muscles worn out almost like
Yeah.
in my
Okay.
lower back.
Was
But I
it?
just haven't really found a good like cure for it. I
Solution.
haven't
Yeah,
done
absolutely.
much. So I don't know if like body work would help that or
Mhm.
more physical therapy. I'm not sure. But
Right. Yeah. Did you go to physical therapy for it?
I did for a little bit. It kind of worked, but some of the stuff, it was like, oh, this is for pain down your leg, but I don't really have that stuff. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. It didn't do much to it.
Yeah.
So they told me a lot of core work can help that
Was
for
now
your spine and stuff, but I don't know. It's still on and off. So
Yeah. And that's the thing and that's a lot of the issue too that some of my clients will come to me of is, they're dealing with something specific, but they're like, I went to physical therapy, but it kind of helped, but didn't really help. But it's not enough to like go back and go through the physical therapy stuff, but it still needs to be addressed, So I think that that's where a lot of people have come to me as kind of that gray area,
mm,
where people are maybe not bad enough to get it addressed medically, but it's still not tolerable enough to not address it at all. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Would you see, like, for me, for example, like how some of these like imbalances I've noticed with, as far as like a leaning squat a little bit,
Mhm.
that bar is kind of at dipping down on one side or, if I go to do a squat when I'm in the hole, I kind of feel a little bit more pressure on one side.
Was it?
And like we were talking about analyzing that and having somebody else examine you,
Was it?
what is like, I mean, can you see like a fix with one session, or is this something that, or I know everybody's different.
For sure.
Is this something you would have to keep up and then start incorporating some, stretches or some type of exercises in your own routine to kind of fix those imbalances and problems?
It really does depend on what it is that we're addressing. But with that example specifically, that would be something that typically would need, consistent treatment, so to say,
Right.
and then see the benefit. You probably would feel great after one session, but it won't be fixed in one session. And with timeline on how long that's going to take, that's where it's kind of more dependent on the person. But typically, you'll probably feel pretty good after the first session. I always tell my clients when they're finished, I'm like, if you train tomorrow, let me know how you feel, but keep a mental note on how good you feel because that will determine the frequency as we go forward. Some people can get away with more time in between sessions. Some people say they come on a Monday, by Friday they're like, I need it again. So that's where it kind of depends.
It's funny too how just in everyday life, like the way you stand or the way you walk or
Definitely.
whatever plays a big role in all this too. Is because I remember months ago, or it might have been last summer, I went and got a deep tissue massage. This was when that was just like my first thing. I'm like, I'm gonna go get a massage because this little imbalance is bothering me. So I want to do something. And I remember I went, got the massage, and then I'm talking to her about some of these imbalances I'm dealing with. And she notices immediately, she's like, well, another thing, look at how you're standing. And I was kind of leaning. I had one foot in front of the other. I'm kind of leaning. She's like, well, look at how you're standing too. You're kind of leaning on that right side.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't even notice. I didn't even realize.
I know. And that's what I mean is because nobody's perfectly symmetrical, but we get so used to just the way we sit or stand or walk or whatever. And it doesn't hurt us until, we deadlift and tweak something. And then it's like, oh crap, this pain is really bothering me. And then when you start to analyze things and really look at things and assess the way that you're moving, it's like, okay, this is just how I move. Not to say you have to totally switch it up, but even in your case with the squatting, when you do fix it and stand in a more neutral stance and are symmetrical, then it feels off. And,
Yeah.
it's just because your body is so used to being off the other way.
Yeah, just being lopsided
Right,
a little bit.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I would notice that too, taking videos. Like when I started noticing that lean, I'm like, all right, let me like bring this shoulder down. Let me tuck a little bit more so it straightens out. I'm like, that feels so weird.
Yep.
And then it's
it
funny,
feels
the
like you're
lopsided
kicking
way feels
completely
normal.
the other way.
Yeah.
Yep. But I think that's the biggest thing, for people to do. That would be my piece of advice would be, start recording, start taking photos, start really looking at it, maybe more through an objective lens. And that would be your first step to seeing what's going on. Or, take a video and then send it to somebody that you trust and be like, this feels weird, but I can't really see it. What do you think? I know typically that's how a lot of online coaches do their programming anyways, is they want their clients to send them training videos. And it's for that exact reason, for them to look at it. Are we training as efficiently as we can be? Are you isolating the movements and the way that we need to? And then they can adjust it from there if they're not.
Yeah, I've had people even tell me, I remember when I started working out, like on my bench press, sometimes my arm was not straight. So I wouldn't even know that without somebody watching me. So I see why it's important to do that.
I know. And it's so easy because especially when you're training, you're just kind of in your zone. You're not really thinking about being technical with it. You're just kind of doing it, pushing it, and that's that. But really it's quite important.
Yeah. I think a lot of my personal issues with imbalances and stuff. So when I was younger, I was in the military. And obviously just your posture out the window. I mean, you're wearing a kit, you're doing ruck marches, weight on your back. And once you start getting fatigued, you're hunching over. And at that time I was a lot heavier in body weight, and I was training powerlifting as well, which is,
Wow.
obviously a lot on your joints. So just with the military training and being heavier and doing powerlifting movements for 4 years, once I started to lose some weight and cut back and I wasn't doing that military training anymore, that's when I really started noticing some of these imbalances. Like I'm thinner, I can see these imbalances more. I can see it in videos when I'm doing squat, bench, whatever. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of crazy.
For sure. Yeah, I really love when I have, and now there's getting to be enough time under my belt to where I have loyal clients who I do see through maybe an off season, and then they start into a prep and I take them all the way up until their show. And that really is the best case scenario, because if you're in an off season, we're really hitting the recovery hard, they're training hard, the intensity is high, everything is moving forward. But then as you start to lose some of the fluff and you really start to see things, you're dialing more into your posing, more of that refinement. That's really where we can see, okay, we've addressed these issues during the off season. Now, what are we truly looking like when we cut back and take everything off? And, and that makes my job easier too, because I know how their body will respond already. I know how, what their tendencies are with their movements and things like that. So
is bodywork, so it's not really similar to physical therapy in the sense where it's not like very comfortable to do it, right? Like, is it painful kind of like with the scraping and everything?
It definitely can be. I try to make it as comfortable as possible. I actually had a not so great experience with my first time, like getting cupped and scraping. And not that I expected it to feel good, but it just was strictly painful. And I was like, I will never do this again. I'll never get this done again. So I don't want anyone to have that experience.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm a little like lighter handed with it. But a lot of people will be like, oh, I can take the pain. No big deal. Like, and I'll be scraping and doing it. And I'm like, okay.
Like, how is that?
I'm sure like, cause they're bodybuilders, like they have a higher pain tolerance.
Yeah, I know. And two, I've noticed, like, this is just something kind of random, but the more like adipose tissue, like fat tissue that you have in those areas, I think it does actually hurt more.
Mm.
So like a lot of times on women, like the back of the hamstrings, the glutes, like hip area, that will be pretty sensitive with the cupping. Um, I don't know exactly why that is, but it's just the type of tissue that it is. It's not as receptive to obviously the mobilization, but
Mm.
it's a little bit more sensitive in those spots.
What are like some challenges you face? I mean, obviously in every field of work, we come up with those issues or things that are, kind of difficult. Like, have you ever had clients that there's something you want to target and it's just been like such a challenge, maybe just because years of it, being backed up or whatever?
I always want to help people, of course, and I want people to be able to bring their best presentation forward. Where my challenge comes in is if it's a really long time coming and maybe they are a more seasoned competitor or a seasoned athlete, or they have a pretty insane amount of muscle tissue. It is hard to battle that sometimes because that tissue is just layers upon layers upon layers of an imbalance, or scar tissue, or whatever the case is, and sometimes you just can't fight that. Also, structurally, sometimes people are just a little bit more imbalanced structurally from either like a musculoskeletal standpoint um or like a muscle standpoint. So people's insertions maybe off on one side versus the other. And it's frustrating to me because obviously I want to bring the most symmetry that I can, but ultimately you can't like fight against somebody's structure.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sometimes hard for people to understand because they're just like, oh, fix me. Um, and it's really hard to differentiate that too. It's
Hmm.
sometimes I'll be sitting there like either looking at them or thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, is this something that I can fix, or is this just something that's really not fixable? So that can be a little tricky.
When you're doing like scraping or cupping, is it similar to like when people work out, they're kind of like tearing the muscle to build it up stronger? Is it
Yeah.
similar in that sense?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So that's really kind of where that recovery happens is
Mm-hmm.
if with the cupping and scraping too, but mostly with the cupping, mobilizing that tissue allows for the muscle to kind of be told what to do. um and that's kind of the purpose of it. So we're trying to train the body and train the muscles to get them to be in a state to be ready for change.
You work now primarily bodybuilders and stuff, but have you had like powerlifters or any like strongmen training? I'm curious if you have like some differences that you may have seen with kind of their body compared to bodybuilders, just because it's two totally different styles of training.
For sure. Yeah, I really have only worked on maybe like one or two power lifters.
Hmm.
um they definitely have a lot more muscle mass, but in less of like a detail standpoint,
Yeah,
if that makes sense. With
yeah, for sure.
bodybuilding, it's very like detail oriented. With power lifters, there's just a lot of mass.
Right.
And there's really not any major differences with that, but again, it's just kind of the mobility. A lot of like overall mobility drills are going to be the best thing for someone like that.
Yeah, because I was curious, like, if you would start to notice like patterns, like you get bodybuilders and maybe just something with the way that they train, there's something you notice more with them compared to, let's say you get a couple power lifters and you're like, oh, I
Mhm.
notice you guys kind of have this in common compared to the bodybuilders, they kind of have this in common. Maybe
Right.
it's just a result of that style of training.
I don't think really I've had enough experience with like powerlifting,
Hmm.
powerlifters coming to me. Um, Again, everyone kind of complains of like low back pain, hip pain, things like that. I have had some like football athletes and things, same type of wheelhouse, but with bodybuilding specifically, I most commonly there are a lot of common issues
Hmm.
that arise with specific poses and things like that. Style of training I really don't think is as makes as big of a difference.
Okay.
as you would think.
I feel like powerlifters have more like injuries.
Right.
Just the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, well,
do.
and it's all like more compound movements, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's going to
Yeah.
take more of a load on like your low back and your hips and, maybe upper back and things like that, your neck. But, with bodybuilding, it's maybe more of like, okay, more specific shoulder pain, elbow pain, knee pain. That would really be kind of the biggest thing. But
Have you worked like with like some Olympians, like at the Olympia or anything?
yep. So I
Okay.
was fortunate enough to, I went to the Olympia last year for
Oh,
Awesome.
the
nice.
first time. Yep. Well, I've been there as a spectator, but the first time doing body work. And
Okay.
then I also had a really good opportunity to go to the Arnold this year and work
Oh,
on
wow.
some competitors there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I want to go to is the Arnold. It's in
Yeah.
Ohio, so I mean, it's
Yeah.
right there. I know you're in Michigan as well, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And that was one thing. I can't believe that I have never been to the Arnold. This was my first time going. And I remember, like I said, even being in high school and college, being like, had friends that were like, oh, let's go to the Arnold, whatever. And always had an interest for it, but just
Yeah.
never went. And,
Yeah.
it's a couple hours away. It's not really a big thing,
Yeah.
but it was fun. I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's we gotta go. That's something too. We're so close, and we
Yeah.
always want to go, and we always like miss it. Is there something
I
going
know.
on, or it just slips past us? Or...
Yeah. I was really shocked at how much I loved Columbus in general.
Oh, yeah.
So even just to go and see Columbus is really cool.
They have a lot of great gyms down there too. That's something I don't think we
Yeah.
have up
Yeah.
here.
Yes,
I
I
just
know.
don't think it's like rare here, but then right in Ohio they got everything. They even have West Side Barbell and
Yes,
so.
I know. Yeah, I think that that's probably the coolest thing too when you do go to like Arnold and Olympia, bigger shows like that, is there is of course so much hype around it. So it's like there's so many events going on like at the gyms and you can run it, you never know who you're going to run into and
Yeah.
like that environment of it, the energy is just like so electrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's similar. Like we went to South Carolina. It was called Cyrenix Summer Strong. It's this big event that they have at their headquarters. I don't know if you've heard of Cyrenix. It's like they make a lot of equipment, so a lot of the
Okay.
squat racks and everything. But they have these big events where a lot of these coaches and bodybuilders, powerlifters go. They have like seminars there. They have competitions they do. It's a 2-day event, and so it's very similar to that. Like the energy there was insane.
Yeah. Yeah. There's really nothing like it. And I think that those are like, that's the type of stuff that just sets my soul on fire because just being around it and in it and you're like living it, it's just,
Yeah.
you can't even explain it. And now it's even more gratifying for me because, at the Arnold, Olympia was really cool. And I still can't even believe that I made it there. It was like by the grace of God. But with the Arnold, it was even more gratifying because I had athletes, that I had just worked on and you see them on stage. And then, I had the pleasure of working with Mike Sommerfeld. He ended up winning the Arnold Classic. So it was just such a cool moment. And it was really cool.
Wow.
I'm sure it's like satisfying too, knowing like you're a part of it, like that feeling of like being a part of it. Like, hey, I was able to work on this individual, and then you see him up there competing, and you're like, man, like just that satisfaction you get from playing a role.
Yeah, absolutely. It really feels good to be able to, just provide that type of service for somebody and to be able to help them on their journey to the stage. And it's not, I don't care about any recognition for it. It's not my competition. Like I'm just here to help you and send you on your way. And, whether or not there's recognition that comes from it or this, that, and the other, it's not about that. As cheesy as it sounds, it really is just about like, I just want to be a helping hand to get you to your best to go on stage. And I enjoy the assessment. I enjoy picking things out and putting that puzzle together. And then for the whole package to come together on stage, like that's on you. That's nothing to do with me. So I don't. That's really
And
cool.
it does play a big role. Like I was saying earlier in the beginning of the podcast, like it's something I think it's overlooked a lot. The body work and the recovery aspect. And I mean, we just get into that rhythm where we're like, oh, we just got to train. We're gonna look good. We're gonna get strong. We're gonna train. But it's just like your recovery and your body movement and everything. Just it has to be as intense, pretty much. It has to be on par with the type of training that you're doing, just so you can, like you said, put that full package together.
And I think it's highly overlooked at, your body's ability to put on new tissue when you are trying to grow and things like that. If you're not recovering the right way, your body just physically can't pack on more tissue. Or it can, but it's maybe not as much as it could be. You know what I mean? So the biggest thing with body work, whether it's in an off season or in season, it really is just getting your body to the best advantageous state to either put on more tissue, to look more detailed, to be more symmetrical, whatever the goal is. But the body work aids in that. When I know that when an athlete does take care of their body in the way that they maybe should be, it just shows. And I actually have a girl who's competing in nationals, I think next weekend, but I wasn't with her for her prep last season, but she's come to me in her off season, and now, she's gone through her prep and we're just finishing up. She's competing next week. But, even in her case, she's like, I feel this prep is so different from me. I feel I'm in such a better headspace, that type of thing. And that is when people really start like, okay, I prioritize recovery. I'm prioritizing my mental health. I'm prioritizing my support system. When you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, that's when you get the best package. So I'm just the small piece of the puzzle in that, but it does make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. What would you recommend? Like, so somebody that's like listening to this right now, or somebody that's like, I'm having something I'm kind of feeling or something, I think I should get some work done. I mean, would you recommend just for anybody across the table, like, yeah, just come get some body work done? Like, you don't need to do too much research, just come in, but I think this would help you. I mean, because I know a lot of times with myself, it's like, there's so many things out there. It's like the body work or the massager, and there's so many different kinds. And it's like, where do I start? Like, what would be most beneficial for me?
I think even in your case, like most people resort to, okay, I'm going to go get a massage, or I'm going to go see my chiropractor. Again, great services, but if you're repeatedly getting those types of services and you're not seeing a benefit, then it's time to switch it up or to explore other avenues. I will always say you probably need the body work done. But also I've had people who will reach out to me and they'll say, I'm having a back issue. My back is killing me. I've been dealing with it for this amount of time. I always say, I probably can help you, but I want to make sure that people understand what it is that they're getting, because oftentimes people will be like, oh, I need a massage. I heard you do great massage work. While that's true, I'm also not a massage therapist. So the basis of the body work session is cupping and scraping and muscle recovery. Massage is a part of that, but it's not what the session is.
Right.
And I always try to preface that for people too, to make sure that that I am providing what they're looking for. Cause like I said, even I was like, no to cupping and scraping. But I always want to make sure that people understand what it is they're signing up for. And sometimes I'm not the best fit. So.
Gotcha. I like how you mentioned too about how, if you're constantly going and getting work done and it seems to not be fixing the issue, that's like, okay, maybe it's time to start looking into other avenues. Because I've heard people say before, like, it should ultimately be like you're trying to fix the issue, right? Like if you keep going and you keep getting the service and you're not noticing a change, it's like, okay, then, the goal shouldn't be to keep going. It's like, we need to fix this issue and then perhaps give you the tools to, start fixing your posture, do these things in everyday life to really fix that problem.
Yeah. And I think that that's where, certain services get skewed over others. Um, and I know that there's a big conflict between like physical therapy and chiropractic care. Even when I was in school, they were like butting heads. And I
Yeah.
think oftentimes that's why. But also there are physical therapists out there who do the same thing, and they say, you need to come see me, or they give you the bare minimum of exercises or mobility
Yeah.
drills or whatever the case is. Yeah, those tools are helpful, but they're not gonna fix the issue. You shouldn't have to be
Right.
dependent on that person or that service to feel better. They should be able to give you
Yeah.
the tools no matter who it is.
So where do you work out of?
So right now I work out of my home. So this is actually the studio in my home that I work out
Mm-hmm.
of.
Nice.
So it's been nice, and it's definitely convenient. My ultimate goal is to maybe get into a gym or have a facility, but also it's hard because there are things out there that just maybe aren't the right fit. Um,
Yeah.
but we're just doing what we can for now.
Yeah. That would
Right.
be cool to have like a little studio, say like connected to a gym or something.
Yeah,
That would be
Yeah.
yeah,
great.
that would be the ideal situation.
So can people reach out to you like through Instagram or your website and just come see you, make an appointment?
Yep. So my
Yeah.
booking link is posted up on my Instagram. It's Moroz Bodywork. So right through there, you can see like all of the services that I offer. You can book right on there. That's the easiest way. Even on my Instagram, that's kind of where I highlight everything, and you can see exactly what a session looks like. What it is that you're getting yourself into. And that's really what I try to target with my social media.
Like something a little bit different, not to digress too much, but how has like the social media aspect been with this? Like, is this something you're trying to grow your page and,
Yeah.
kind of get the content out there?
Yeah, I feel like I'm like a one-man band. I give a lot of credit to influencers because
Mhm.
social media it's a whole other beast. And,
Yeah.
um, the thing that I try to convey through my social media is just that I want people to understand what body work is and what
Mhm.
it looks like during a session, because that's oftentimes people will be like, well, what is body work?
Yeah.
Because either you hear about either massage or physical therapy, there's no body work.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that's also just a sidebar. I think that that's something that social media has helped with, because you do see these top level Olympians and athletes getting their recovery sessions. You see the type of
Mhm.
work that they're getting. You see them getting cupping and things like that. So social media has helped in that regard, for kind of to have people perk their ears and be like, oh, what is this? Or okay,
Yeah.
CBOM is getting this type of recovery. Maybe I need to get that recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's kind of helped mainstream body work, or recovery work. So it's
Yeah.
helpful in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, social media is definitely
Yeah.
it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know from experience, just, I
Yeah.
mean, there's
Yeah.
so much content out there. And
Yeah.
when it comes to your line of work too, I mean, honestly, I think that's how we've found out about body
Mhm.
work and
Yeah.
cupping, is
Yeah.
seeing videos. You see
Yeah.
the video of people on the table with the
Right.
cups and the
Yeah.
big red circle. I'm like, what is that?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I am so eternally grateful actually for social media, because I would say that that's probably about how 80+% of my business has grown.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, where I'm located, there's actually a pretty decent bodybuilding community in
Mm-hmm.
this area in the east side of Michigan, and we have a lot of gyms, local gyms. Everyone kind of knows everyone, so that's really how it grew in the first place, was by word of mouth.
Oh
Mhm.
wow.
I really didn't have to resort to a lot of like marketing, which is great, but once it caught fire through the community,
Mhm.
it really took off from there. And then of course Instagram helps with that, because
Mm-hmm.
people
Yeah.
hear about you, they look you up, and then they see the page, and then that's kind of just how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah, I'm sure posting and everything really like opened people's eyes to what bodywork is because I mean I've seen like C-bum or some of these swimmers, you can tell they've had cupping done, but it's
Right.
like where do they get that done? Like how do you do that? So it's
Absolutely.
sure it's helpful for people to see your videos like oh I can go there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it kind of is like the behind the scenes work. And I
Mhm.
think that a lot of times with like YouTube channels and Instagram and things like that, people like to see that side of high profile athletes. You know, they like to see
Mhm.
what happens behind the scenes and, you know, away from the stage or whatever it is. So it has helped in that regard. But I would like to transition some of my social media to be more informative, to be educational, to provide some type of value for people to really see the value in it.
Right.
Yeah.
I know something we've talked about before, just even with this podcast, is like people's attention spans
Yes.
nowadays,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is like putting out that content to where it's like it's quick but it's informative, right?
Yes.
Like catching their attention, like okay, this is what it's about, and it's been a learning process for
Yeah.
us.
I know.
You know, there's so
Yeah.
many different things.
Yeah. And I know I'm even guilty of it too. Like, you know, doom scrolling and
Mm-hmm.
you see a video and it's like the first, I don't know what I think it's like the first 6 seconds or something is like what they say, but it
Yeah.
either catches your attention or it doesn't, and
Yeah.
you move on. Um,
Yeah.
so it's hard.
Yeah.
Yes. You really need to find something to catch people's attention real quick because
Yeah,
or they'll just scroll past it.
I know, I know. Yeah, and it really is hard because with my social media specifically, I try. Obviously, I'm going to highlight like the top level athletes, and you know, now that I have done that, you know, I'm of course very grateful, but that is an opportunity for me to get more bigger names out there to have the reach. You know, my goal is to kind of integrate into the IFBB and to get the bigger names to notice me.
Mhm.
But also, I'm trying to manage just my loyal everyday clientele that I have at home. So
Yeah.
that's kind of it's definitely a balance.
Mhm.
You know, I'm trying to tackle multiple beats at once, but
Have you had athletes where you're like, I really want to work with that person, and then you have been able to?
yeah, yeah. So it's funny when I wasn't planning to go to even attend the Olympia last fall.
Mhm.
I had gone the last couple of years, and I was like, I'm not going to go to this one, whatever. Um, I had a client who I met for the first time, and she was like, "Are you going to go?" And I was like, "Oh, I would like to, but not this year. My dream would be to work on athletes." She was like, "Well, why don't you?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just here in Michigan, like it's just little old me." And so, long story short, I pretty much messaged every single qualified Olympia athlete and was just like, "Hey, you know, my name's Marissa. I do body work. I'd love to get you for a pre-stage treatment." Um, so I ended up getting four Olympians
Nice. That's
for the
cool.
Olympia, yeah. And then I picked up four more people when I was there.
Oh
Awesome.
wow.
Yeah, and then I did the same thing with the Arnold. So a lot of times those messages you can only send one message, you know, because
I
it.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know from experience.
Yeah.
We're trying to reach
So
out.
you know, there was a lot of denials, a lot of unread messages, but the two that I tried to get for Olympia that I didn't, that I ended up getting for Arnold, were Mike Sommerfeld and Aaron Banks.
Oh
So
wow.
you know, I it didn't work out for the Olympia, but when I saw that they were qualified for the Arnold, I, you know, reached out and just you kind of just have to shoot your shot
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I did and it worked out and you know, I'm so eternally grateful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you, so, you know, with some of this work, I know working with bodybuilders and, you know, posing and stuff like that,
Mhm.
have you seen a big difference? Do you see a lot of common issues with males versus females?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I notice a lot of times with men is, and I think it's just due to the posing, but
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes men will have more difficulty with like shoulder blade mobility. So,
Okay.
especially in like a back double bicep or, you know, lat spread or things like that, that's really where you see the mobility happening or not happening, which directly affects how full the muscle is going to look. So anything through like upper to mid back usually sticks out with men. And then with women, because of the posing, especially with bikini and wellness, that posing, there's a lot of like rotation through like the upper back, lower back, and then arching too. So if a girl has like tighter hips or tight low back, you can't rotate your pelvis forward enough to really arch your back and get those muscles to pop. So that's a lot of times what will be seen with those athletes.
Yeah, I give you a lot of credit because I feel like just looking at it from somebody that's not knowledgeable in that is like being able to see something, right? Being able to spot that and analyze it, and then coming up with a solution is, okay, it's probably this. And we need to move your body in this way, or I would recommend this. I mean, it seems very complex.
Yeah. And that's funny that you put it that way, because that is exactly what's happening. But that's just that's what physical therapy is. And that's what I've done with work forever, it feels like. So luckily at this point it's second nature, but it is very intricate. And I think that oftentimes, I don't maybe give myself enough credit to be like, okay, this is actually what's happening. This is a multi-step process where for me, it's like, okay, this is what I see. This is what we have to do. But I'm luckily, I'm very fortunate that I have that ability to do that.
Yeah. It's like, man, we wish we could have someone like you around all the time. It's like, hey, this is
like
bothering
constantly
me.
Watching you.
Just wake up and have some pain. I'm like, what's going on here?
I know. Yeah. And I have such a loyal clientele base here at home. And I would not be able to like do Olympia or Arnold or, bigger shows like I want to without the clients that I have at home. And that's also really something that I pride myself on is the relationship that I've built with my clients. So all that to say, oftentimes I'll have my clients text me and they'll be like, oh my God, my neck this morning, it's like totally messed up. I need to get in to see you. Usually I can like squeeze somebody in last minute, but it's funny because that's just how it is. But I'm also fortunate that I've built that relationship to where people feel like they can text me and be like, oh my God, I need you.
It's got to be a good feeling too. It's just like you're that person, the go-to, like, hey, something's wrong with got this tightness here. What's happening?
Yeah. And that's something too, like, I've had a couple like older clients come to me and maybe they'll be like, oh, I got your name from so-and-so. I'm not a bodybuilder, but I've been having this issue for, X amount of time. I've tried this, I've tried that. Nothing works. Given what I do and with it being more in the bodybuilding world, I typically wouldn't see somebody like that. But, with my experience in physical therapy, I feel confident to be able to help them just in general. So it's not really something that I would advertise of like, hey, anyone and everyone with aches and pains, come see me. But if there's someone who reaches out to me and is like, I've tried everything, I haven't found a solution, you were recommended to me, of course I'll see them and take care of it if I can.
It's awesome too. I think it really demonstrates, with you starting your practice now and having your own clients and just, again, even people we've talked to that are personal trainers, putting yourself out there. Right? And then just having the confidence in your own work and putting yourself out there, and then, word of mouth, and you gain that momentum. And now you have essentially this family around you of people that trust you and come to you for your work. And it just really demonstrates that taking that initial step of, this is what I do, this is my work, I have confidence in it, and you build that, that space for people. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's definitely hard. It hasn't been easy. There's a lot of unknowns. I mean, I don't know the first thing about business. And when I first started this, luckily I had a lot of people around me who were encouraging for me and who they believed in me more than I believed in myself. And that's really what pushed me to start it in the first place. And I think that is my biggest advice to anyone who like wants to start something or do something. like literally just do it. You don't have to have all of the pieces of the puzzle. And that's something that I really had to talk myself out of, because it's like, you don't have to have it perfect to get it started. Just do it. And you'll figure it out from there. Because if you try to look at what's to come, you will never do it.
And you'll learn through going through it, right?
Right.
You'll learn through the process and acquire more knowledge and skills, and just taking that first step to get started. And it's like, I'm going to learn, I'm going to fail, but I'm going to learn from those failures. And there's so many, I feel like another thing that people go through is they don't want to take that first step and start something because social media, you see it all out there, right? A lot of things are oversaturated, and podcasts, this and that, and you're like, well, look at his or her content, and who am I to start? I'm going to start with 10 followers, and it's like, but you got to believe in yourself and start it.
Yeah. And really, that's where my faith has come in, because they always say, like, God doesn't qualify the called, or God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And that really is true, because who's to say that anyone can do it? If I can do it, anyone can do it. And you hear people say that all the time, and it really is true. I mean, there's nothing that I have done that makes me more qualified, more or less able, than someone else. All that I did that maybe is different from someone else is I took that first step, and the rest is not up to me.
Yeah, that's why it's important to keep going. Like, no matter what, like, even if you post a clip and it only gets 10 views, like, who cares? You don't do it for that. You do it because you love it. Yeah. And then, you say, like, 2 years ago, could you see yourself where you are now?
Oh my God,
Probably
no.
Not. No. So that's why it's important to just keep going with, what you believe in.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to step out of the physical therapy world, and pursue this full time. And now this is how I support myself and things like that. And to think just about that is insane, because I started it with the intentions to just make like $10 to $20 to cut people at the gym, just to help them, make them feel better, and I'm, of course, by no means where I would love to be with the business, but I am so much further than where I ever thought I would be. And in the time frame that I've been doing it. But it's not been my journey. This is literally by the grace of God. And, I really just can't take the credit for it.
That's amazing.
Something Ethan and I have talked about too, and I've mentioned it on previous podcasts, is like, if you post a video and it gets 1,000 views, or, you have, let's say, 1,000 followers, don't get blinded by these people that have millions, et cetera. It's like, imagine 1,000 people in a room. Imagine 100 people in a room, right? That's a lot of people that you're benefiting, that are enjoying your content and taking some knowledge from it.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective. And I actually never thought about it like that, because that's something that I get wrapped up in. And, of course, my following has grown immensely, but I don't even have 2,000 followers, but still, it's like, I started it was maybe like 300 of my closest family and friends. And, it wasn't anyone outside of my circle. And to think about, even when I was at the Olympia, I worked on this girl. She's from New Zealand. I was just at the Detroit Pro back in March, and I had a guy who lives in Dubai. A lot of people from Germany, like just all walks of life from all over the world. And it's like, dude, I live in Macomb, Michigan. Like, this does not add up. Like, you know what I'm saying? And but that's, again, that's why, like, my faith is so strong through it, because I'm like, there is no other explanation than, like, by the grace of God, because that's unheard of. Like, I don't have that type of reach, but yet here I am working on someone who lives on the complete opposite side of the globe from me.
Right. Yeah. I feel like it's those experiences and those connections that you build that you're going to start to notice and experience first rather than, gaining more followers or something like that. Like, obviously, we're a new podcast. We've been doing this for a year, but some of the connections that we've built with people, like people that we've been able to have conversations with, we would have never guessed. Like, these are people we're just watching on social media back in the day.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that was really something that I think that I took away from the Arnold when I was just there. When I went to the Olympia, they have like a meet the athletes event, before the weekend starts. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to find, these 4 athletes that I'm working on, just go say hi, strengthen that relationship, whatever. That place is packed when you go to do that, by the way. I couldn't find any of the 4 athletes that I had booked. All I saw were all these Olympians, all these, people lining up to see people left, right, and center. And I was so incredibly overwhelmed. I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm such a small fish in a big pond. What am I doing here? And I really had a hard time with that. And then a few months later for the Arnold, I was by myself and walking around the expo, and I kind of just had to give myself a pep talk. And I was like, okay, Marissa, like you just worked on these people. Like, go talk to, if there's someone who you see, go talk to them. If there's someone who you need to strengthen a relationship with, go talk to them. And the more that you do that, and the more that you put yourself out there and it goes well, then you gain the confidence and the momentum to be like, okay, I can do this, or, this can turn into this connection. And it really, again, it just boils down to taking that first step to be like, hey, I'm Marissa, I do body work, and then see where it goes from there.
Right. Yeah. And just that networking too. Like for us, we had the same experience when we went to this lifting event down in South Carolina. I mean, from this company, we had 3 people on our podcast, and we had talked to many people, and, they're posting content that we've seen on Instagram, and you see them in person.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, then we go spark a conversation, and you're like, hey, that's so-and-so that he does that workout program he posts. And it's,
I know. And that is where social media has been helpful, because that's a good in, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Even just to go up to somebody if they have no idea who you are and be like, oh, you're so-and-so, I follow you on Instagram. Like, that's a perfect opener, you know what I mean? And that's what I resort to if I find myself lost. But But it is true, and it just helps strengthen those relationships. I will do a lot of events in Michigan now too, just at local bodybuilding shows. And so many people come up to me and will be like, oh, I follow you on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And it's just nice to put a face to the name and strengthen that connection and, really kind of dial it in. But that's just how it works, but it's hard.
Yeah. It's a process, and a lot of times too, you got to have that confidence. Yeah. If you don't have the confidence in yourself or your work, you're going to find yourself like, oh, there's so-and-so at this event, but I'm not going to talk to him, or,
Yeah. Trust me. I'm still trying to get over that.
It's a process for sure.
It is. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marissa. Thanks for coming on the show. Before we end it, is there any words of wisdom you want to put out there?
I think just everything that we talked about, like the biggest thing is just take that first step. If you're into something specific, or it's a podcast or business you want to start or whatever it is, there may be 9 million other ones out there, but no one is you, and that literally is your power. For sure. And you don't know what type of connections that you'll make, and I say just go for it. And at least for my business, all my glory goes to God, because it would not be possible without him. So
definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Marissa.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It was cool learning about some of the body work that she does, and really just how important it is for getting some of these bodybuilders stage ready, and just kind of how hand in hand, your recovery has to kind of be on par with your training. A lot of people train, but they kind of neglect that recovery aspect. So just seeing how, important it is just to kind of get your body right and symmetrical. Yeah,
I've never thought how important that is too, to get body work done. I've always seen athletes, you can see the bruising from the cupping and everything, but it's good to know where you can get it done and how important it is.
And the benefits.
Yeah. All right, let's see if these work. I don't know. Probably not. You're not gonna.
No.
A little bit. A little bit. That one, no, that one doesn't work.
It's dead.
Try that one.
It's dead.
No. All right. Well,
Nothing.
thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Peace out.
Peace.